So early adopters as a semantic layer, this is my topic today. And my first question on the audience, if you heard already about Carl Zeiss, Ian, you don't need to answer these questions. Yes, so already 2 hands, 3 hands almost. Oh, so many. Very good. Because it's very, very important before even starting semantics or data subjects to talk also about what is producing in this company and which eventually the services or applications semantic layers can support. A bit of background about myself. I have more than 20 years experience in the data field, architect, platform, solution engineering, and so forth. Why I'm telling you this? Because some of the things which are very, very business driven and related, but sometimes I will go also on a technical side. So you'll be warned about that. Right, so let's start the journey about group products. And by the way, I bought myself some paper. It's not about a speech. I would like to semantically link myself with some of the other presentations, early presentations, and some of the things which I will mention are connecting to the early points. So watch out from my semantic links. So our company is very old. Yes, it is almost 200 years ago when these two gentlemen founded a company in Jena. And still, Jena is the most important productive center for Zeiss, but also Oberkochen. So we have two major areas which are producing. You would ask him, but why I'm from Munich? Yes, a good question. I am representing a digitalization unit, which eventually is basically based mostly in Munich. And inside the digitalization unit, we have a chief data office, a data foundation team, and underneath we have a so-called data architecture and lifecycle team. Eventually, what we are doing and what I am heading off is a data management and knowledge management imbrication. So this is what we are trying to do is more or less not just to stay on semantics, but saying, I would like to productionalize everything about this semantics and put it in a form of a data product management. And we will have some folders about that. So what my unit is eventually doing is how I can be able to combine data, classical data management, or non-classical, the data product management type of things, with semantics, and how we can eventually serve different applications. So some facts about our company. I think I'm very, very proud about these achievements, and you can already see some of the treatments, clinical use cases which Zeiss is already covering. The microchips, 80% of the ASML lithography. By the way, this is the first semantic link to Daniel. This is there. We didn't talk about this before the meeting. Then we have the camera lenses, which eventually I think everybody is using. I think the visions and the glasses, the lenses, which are sometimes on our houses, is also very important. Then German Future Prize, which we won, the Nobel laureates, which were using our products. So I think that Zeiss, through innovation and precision, is in everyday life present. And this is a very big achievement from my perspective. So when we're talking about Zeiss, we're not talking about one company. We are talking about mostly 4 companies. It is a group. And each of these group companies are eventually producing different products and accordingly different services. Of course, you will say semantics is also different. Yes, definitely. So we have the semiconductor manufacturing technology, which I just mentioned before. It's serving the production of microchips. Ourselves are not producing semiconductors. No, we don't. But the optical components in order to be being produced. Then the quality and research IQR, which includes microscopy, and one of the use cases are coming from this direction. So I will drill down on their area. Then the medical technology, so we are doing interventions through medical devices produced by Zeiss. We are measuring the quality of the eyes before a medical intervention, but also by ophthalmologists. So all of these devices which you are seeing in Zeiss, also as Munich, also a center, we are all produced by our company. And last but not least, most of the people knows these consumer markets because these are the glasses, the lenses, the cinematography, the photos, and so forth. So I will go a bit through these products just to see the size. So all of these products which are developed, and we have the pleasure to go to Jena and Oberkochen, these are huge. What does this mean? We have a lot of components where eventually service is very, very complicated, and also their repair and this kind of life cycle is also something which is a big headache. Microscopy, as you see, it is one of the industrial leader in offering these microscopes, clinical, industrial, all kind of use cases, and you will see their importance in regard to services is very, very important. This kind of devices are few millions value, so this is very, very, very expensive product. So that eventually the life cycle should be as long as possible. The biggest revenue comes from services, right? Because we need to keep this alive and to be repaired, eventually to be very close to our customers. The Meditech area, as I mentioned, ophthalmology and microsurgery. So very important, what kind of data are producing this kind of devices? You can imagine everything regarding the patient. Eye controls, pictures, videos, annotations coming from the specialist, and so forth. This information, which is eventually here produced, is very valuable in order to treat diseases, but also to improve our products. And we will come to the second use case also there. So now finally we'll say, we escaped the Zeiss part. So now we go to the semantics. Right, so from the three productive applications which we are nowadays supporting in our company, in our group, the employee experience platform, the customer service, and the R&D use case, I would like to present the second and the third one. And that would be the next part of our presentation. So Zeiss microscopy and service semantic-based application. So here, as we mentioned, it was a question about what is the business value? And the second semantic link is going to Chiankai's book. His first chapter, he's always saying, well, us data people, we always would like to have the business a certain literacy. So coming to them, explaining them, you have to know this in order to be able to be a data expert. But how many times are going on the business side and saying, well, I would like to learn your business. So this is one of the cases which eventually is really focusing on that point, because at the time when we contacted the microscopy, we had two large issues. One of them is the service field engineers population is aging and it's very hard to find. So it's decreasing, so that eventually the possibility to operate and service our customers are reducing in time. Secondly, the time eventually to interfere and repair a certain microscopy according to the information regarding these microscopes are very, very large. So that eventually there were two different kind of financial pressure, which it can be quantified, it can be eventually said, this is your use case, so what are you doing from here? The solution which eventually we tried to do, and it was not only ourselves, it is eventually an application. The application was eventually a web application, which is able to serve the service engineers also in the basements. Imagine, we are coming and eventually doing some sort of, you will see some sort of chat with the application based on the conditions and the device, and we will receive different kind of answers and being able to accordingly do a kind of repair steps. And these repair steps, according to the manuals, and all the manuals can be downloaded before we eventually starting the reparation in the basement. So this is really an application, And we did eventually, how you could call it, the backend side of it. We are not really a GUI specialist, but sometimes we also had some GUI interactions. So how would you look like to a certain type of flow, an information flow here? And this is the most simplified one. So when a service order comes, it's almost generated from two different areas. Either a customer comes and says, well, my microscope is defect, what you are doing, or a conditional monitoring alert comes from the conditioner that's saying, well, something is wrong, it needs to be kind of an interference given. A service order is generated, and by service order, of course, a guy needs to come, needs to know exactly what kind of device it is, what kind of spare parts, what were the service orders previously related to this device, needs to know exactly what kind of components, which kind of manuals we have, and also with all of this knowledge, probably as a beginner, he will not be able to solve the topic because we had too much information, too many steps. Even if he has this kind of information, how you can do the steps and how you can create this intelligence. On top of it, well, we wanted as much as possible to do this new conversational AI direction, which just kicked up in the project. So we eventually wanted to even augment further this solution. So in the end, our semantics-based backend, call it like that, has three different kind of major components. The first one is, and this is the heart of it, is the knowledge graph, which eventually is able to contextualize and correlate all the information, structured or unstructured. And this is, I think, the most important, probably the heart of this solution. Secondly is this called it feedback-driven semantics annotation machine learning layer, which is able to kind of deduct such an information and understand from the feedbacks and actions of the service field engineers how the data and knowledge graph needs to be organized. So it's a dynamic organization based on feedback. You would ask what kind of feedback, so how the feedback is coming, right? And this is eventually GUI stuff. It's two types of feedbacks we can collect. One, logs. We just need what the things are happening and which is the steps. Which is a bit dumb. We also said we needed to do a separate type of GUI, which eventually is conscientiously asking the service field engineers why you did this, and which is the step, and which is the step, and which is the step. So eventually we reproduced whatever the service field engineers were thinking and progressing for the repair. And last but not the least, the LLMs, the GPT, the conversational area, which we all talked about, the Gen AI, kicks in, eventually being able to reproduce the informations, knowing exactly what kind of questions to ask and what kind of steps to deliver for the service field engineers. And voila, now is the technical part. You were all afraid probably, and this is it. So it's still simplified, so it's not so bad. But you see we are treating structured and unstructured data very similarly as a transformation onboarding step. We only have some very clear GraphDB, operational, and vector DBs in order to index information, to serve them to LLMs and the chat API, and also to do different kind of operationalizations through the API server. So this is mostly the solution we had, and very quickly, we mentioned several times, a solution is not being solved and it's not being finished until somebody doesn't measure the results. And very important, we collected feedbacks from service engineers. Are you happy? And this is what, for example, one of the service engineers said, I could go home faster at that time because I use this application. On the other side, of course, I'm measuring also the metrics from the active customers and how they react with the platform, so that they know if something is happening or something wrong is happening. Can be two different directions. One, there is a new content integration which might be going wrong and didn't index it correctly, or secondly, something happened on the application side. So That would be my first use case. And now we progressing to the second one, which is eventually a different area, Meditech. Here, eventually the use case started a bit differently, and it's mostly R&D and not operationally driven. So here the Meditech colleagues had different kind of perspectives and collected use cases for data initiatives, which are on top of whatever we are collecting from the R&D units. So what R&D units are collecting, I will show you straightforward. Mostly they are patient structure data, which are of course anonymized, together with pictures, which are eventually taken, videos which are taken, and different annotations on top of that. Very, very globally, but of course we are much more than that. The format of this is not defined. So you can imagine as being almost like a semi-structured data coming on the top, and how eventually we'll be able to analyze this or create kind of recommendations based on that if your data is not really unified. So that was one of the major challenges, and of course we wanted also to use the data managers from Meditech so that some of the operations we can do themselves. Now we have probably also multiple colleagues from this room experience with taxonomies, knowledge graph engineering, and so forth. Very well. So how easy is it for you to bring this kind of knowledge to somebody who has no knowledge about and no experience regarding this semantics? It's very tough. So what we try to do as much as possible to create a data lifecycle as a service, call it like that. So eventually to abstractize different kind of perspectives and letting them the possibility to interact directly with the system through that. So again, the topics, and this is coming back to the business value part, complexity of data management cycles, and which eventually including also image, object recognition, annotation deductions, segmentations, and so forth, until to the point that there are different regulatory, clinical, and data quality risks. So all of this made the solution or the need for the solution very clear and very tangible. So all of these costs, one can also eventually calculate and say, well, I have inefficient data operations and creating hundreds of operations in different kind of R&Ds. How much is this? How much is the risk? So that eventually I exposing some of those data or losing some of those data. How is the risk of losing reputation basically on wrongly qualified or quality data? So all of this brought to the solution that we wanted to create a data lifecycle software, another application. This is the second application which our unit is happily supporting. It went live sometimes in summer in this first version. We are now eventually creating the version 1.1. It's including all of these data transformations, which you are seeing in the picture. And yes, the heart of it is still the knowledge graph. And this time, it's not the unstructured, structured perspective only, but the interoperability perspective also. We wanted the not yet formatted data to be also structured, and this is the structure we created in a certain ontology. So what are the use cases which are happily living on this software? One of them is digital eye twin, which is very important for the cataloging of the phenotypy image data, and eventually you see different kind of progressions regarding this imaging, but also the annotations and the value of this data, the interpretation of it, and you are also seeing the knowledge graph, some part of the knowledge graph and ontology, which eventually was created with this use case. Secondly and thirdly, we are doing different kind of detection of eye diseases, basically based on different kind of devices. Of course, this is also very important to generate more AI results and more R&D results based on this collected data. And the last use case is for surgery outcome, different kind of operations which eventually are followed through, and the different intersections between these steps and operations inside AI algorithms. So this is mostly what R&D colleagues are already using this platform. And as I mentioned to you, from the version 1, there is no team, team member from my team who is managing this. This is managed by my Meditech colleagues who doesn't have the biggest, brightest ontology management knowledge graph knowledge. So eventually we are pretty happy about it. Of course, we still want to improve, and I will let these improvement points towards the last part. So the question is, well, we certainly created first and the second practical use cases which are productive. We have a number of active users using it. We are live, we are happy. All right, so how we create about a strategy about it, and what are the major technologies which are the heart of this strategy. So knowledge graphs I mentioned several times, and I think there is not a big surprise that Gartner is also seeing it as a rising star. As we mentioned, is the second youth of the knowledge graphs. So I think that we are coming more and more present in this slope on alignment. On the other side, we are also looking to other partners from other industries or related industries to us, what we are doing, how we are solving several very similar topics. So Siemens and Accenture is one of them, who is eventually tackling the Industry 4.0 topics with very similar semantic solutions. And we already have an open door there for the digital twin part, which we mentioned in the last presentation slides. Then we have the Bosch semantic stack, which is another type of as a service add-on on top of the knowledge management area which we're producing. So very similar to what we are also producing for some use cases. And last but not the least, for medical perspective, I would reference AstraZeneca. There we have a very tight relations with the architecture and the architect from them, Ben Gardner. I definitely recommend you to look on LinkedIn. His approach definitely is going in the direction of fair and semantic data products, and how eventually we are doing it stepwise. So not saying from the beginning, I'm creating a fair data product. No, we're saying, well, you already produce some data products, and how you are coming from there until you are semantically linked together. And this is something which we also learned on this. And of course, the use cases are very, very similar from the Meditech perspective. So drug discovery and healthcare and all of these things that AstraZeneca is doing. So we thought, all right, so what are the strategical directions which knowledge graph are supporting at Zeiss? There are three major ones, and I think you've seen several use cases for them. The first one is the recommendation and semantic search, which eventually is allowing for us to very simply incorporate feedbacks and incorporate logic into knowledge management system. Just to give you another parenthesis, Microscopy started with a knowledge management system based on an existing application. So we bought the entire application and knowledge management was included. We tried to modify this. We tried to do different kind of, call it like that, agents and machine learning operations on top of it. It was not possible. So eventually we ended up with the solution which sometimes, yeah, a lot of things we are taking over for these applications, but in the end, the magic happens on our side. Second use case, interoperability, and how MED eventually solved their solutions. And of course, the last but not the least, AI, Gen AI, since we know hallucinations is still a problem. And I think that through combinations of this contextualized and also machine-driven perspectives, we can do in the future much better collaborative solutions. So now I'm coming to the point I mentioned earlier, and I think that were mentioned several times, how we combine data management with knowledge management, how we operationalizing eventually semantics. So we are thinking in terms of data products, and we are trying as much as possible to go with marching these ideas. But we mentioned that without this federation and technological bridging, we do not have too much expectation regarding time to market. We are not really good in regulatory risks or monetizing the data, so we are not really doing very well by doing just simply separated data products. So we created a so-called augmented data management layer, and I would like now to semantically link myself to Malcolm, since he mentioned there is augmentation. I would call it, this is a machine-supported augmentation, so second level from his slide. Yes, so we are all going through this data discovery, lifecycle management, semantic integration, and data product operationalization areas. And eventually, we are self-servicing it. So as much as possible, giving the others the options to use them. And of course, it's not an easy job. And it's still, I think, that we are in a iteratively way supporting this, but we're already starting as much as possible to offer this, such that the data is cataloged, such that we have a clear interoperability and semantic linking, and we can reuse these artifacts and knowledge again and again. So this is how these layers of data and data services are coming in the same picture. So you will see metadata management and knowledge management very closely in the same layer. We have data discovery, we have semantic services, and this interoperability between syntactic and technique are also covered. Now the question is how these data services are connected to each other, and what we intend eventually in the future to standardize. So you see all of this area, metadata, data product management, data lifecycle management, and knowledge management, we all consider them as ops. Metadata ops, data product ops, data ops, and then knowledge management ops. So all of these things eventually are trying to kind of standardize different services, and you will see, starting with onboarding the data, pre-processing, annotating through the data ops, until I'm getting also the metadata information, and I am able to classify that. So eventually I'm descripting technically and business-wise a class inside the metadata management. Then I'm able to go to the non-linked data product. So it's still described, well, it still have some part of the fair, but eventually is not completely E. Then this class description, we can take it over in the knowledge management and going on the object level. So now I'm not only just describing links between classes, like for example, the types of devices, the devices, and all the service type typology, but eventually I can go on the object level and say, this specific device is connected to this specific spare parts. And eventually describe not only the link, but also the taxonomy related to it. And this is now happening in this knowledge management area, where eventually in the end, we're going to the level I can output a data product, which is of course a data set, software, which is producing this data set, together with all the meanings and ontologies and taxonomies coming with that. We call this machine readable format. So all of this you can afterwards go and share, and being able to publish either for a data marketplace or a semantic search. And of course, to put all of this in a portal and making the correct data APIs on top. What we also hope in the future that all of this experience will be seamless, so that everybody has the same GUI, he knows exactly in which step he got, how to get to the next step, and how to get it easier to get to the next step. And that sometimes is not so out of the box. For example, how I'm connecting my new data with already existing ontologies, or how I'm classifying or annotating my structured data, unstructured data very easily. So future use cases and directions. I think this is mostly the last part. So we are thinking, of course, of scaling our existing applications to other units. And I mentioned to you, well, we have big devices, yes, all of them, but the ontology is completely different. So how the components are looking like, how eventually the processes, the manufacturing, and also the other processes are looking like is completely different. So the ontology you need to reproduce. The applications probably would still be there, would still be reusable, but a lot of the insights of the semantics needs to be redone. Then, of course, additional features which are very handy when it's coming to, for example, repair, virtual reality, but also to do predictive maintenance, inclusion, digital twin solutions, and object detections, coming all of this as an extra feature in the future part of the stack. So digital twin, I mentioned some of the things, and this will be, I think, the next direction where will be going and heading and trying to do. And I think that was somebody from Ontotech saying something, so a semantic link to the digital twin use case. Right, so I think there are two areas, the building digital twin and the manufacturing digital twin, which we would like to support in a future progression. Mostly building area is regarding to, of course, the processes and also the different conditional data which is included there, and we need some aggregation and alerts on top of it. Manufacturing also the same, similarly, but according to the manufacturing processes. As you see, different kind of landscapes, down and probably up. So regarding the enterprise service buses, the data sources are completely different. But the information management platform, which would be collected through knowledge graphs and knowledge management through integration layer, intelligent layer, we would like to be common. And this is something which we would like to standardize. So how it will look like for the building twin, similar to that, you see the ontology is already having some properties with rooms and temperature and different kind of expert know we like to collect as a rules engine, and data sources we like to connect to this solution, and eventually serve it through different kind of APIs. So regarding technical improvements and where we like to go in the future, I'm not happy at all as of now, unfortunately. So we produce a semantic search which is very faceted. Still, it's serving its purpose in the same direction of the Meditech, but going with this semantic search to other company, it will not work. So we would like to have a more intuitive and more user-friendly knowledge discovery interface. Then I would like to reference some other technologies which were mentioned here already in the previous discussion, GraphRag. I'm happy to say that my colleague here, Ian Ormasher, published an article regarding the GraphRag technologies, basically based on Microsoft OpenAPI. But I think that in the future, we would like, as much as possible, to industrialize this and eventually making it an enterprise solution. So this is one of other directions which we would like to go. Thirdly, we talked a lot about structured, unstructured, correlated together, but what about just structured? So I was in a previous conference in Berlin, where all the people were just related to semantic on top of my normal structured data. I still would like to integrate it semantically. I still would like to put on top of it chat, BI, AI, and work on the same level of semantics, not to change the names, not to change the significance, but the same. And of course, this is where we also would like to go. But since we are starting from the other angle, probably we need some more shifts to go there. But definitely in the first period, we will support the chat with the data. This is easy. This we can also do very quickly. So that would be the first progression. And ontology mapping and creation of this. This is my data, this is ontology, how I can map it easier. I think in the future we will need more automation there and probably also some more GUI guidance. So this is something which also we like to improve in the future. Lessons learned and recommendation. So business value and business value centricity. I think starting a certain type of use case, even in semantics area, it's sometimes hard without a business use case. And secondly, without the business understanding the value of the semantical solution. I think that is very, very important. And also the integration of the business feedback in the loop. Imagine how we developed the applications from microscopy is we had normal agile kind of setups. And every 2-3 weeks we had a review with a service field engineer. Not one, I'm actually multiple service field engineers. We had 5. And we were eventually commenting either on the application side, where the application is not doing the features I want, or we were commenting on the content side. I didn't find what I'm eventually looking for. It's something needs to be refined. And this is something which I definitely would recommend. Take the business feedback and the business kind of testers in the usual loop. Technical innovations, I think we were disrupted in the middle of the creation of this first application by the generative AI wave. We didn't have it before. We had afterwards. And I think the most important thing is not to very quickly react, but to test out the surface, saying, what is this bringing me? What is the risk? We had different kind of conversational AIs where we asked eventually AI, what is the next forecasted value for next 10 days in August 31? And he responded, the next one, August 42, the next one, August 43, and so forth. Yes, it can do mistakes. And it's eventually our role to create solutions which those kind of mistakes are not produced. Adding the business context, I also find it very, very important. So that, as you mentioned, as you see here in this build, we have data, we have one subdomain, we have domains, and then eventually we have enterprise ontology. I wouldn't start with enterprise ontology. I would even wait if enterprise ontology it really has a meaning and what is the meaning of it. We started the subdomains, and I think that we have 2 or 3 of them already, which we created and we can generalize. But I think it's very important to understand what is the meaning of creating a super ontology and where these ontologies should be eventually going. So yeah, that was my presentation. I hope you find some useful insights for your daily activities. Unfortunately, I will not be able to stay longer, so eventually I will have to go after this. But my colleague Ian will stay. So he's laughing, but but all your technical questions, just shamelessly, just put them on my slide. No worries. Yes. So, but otherwise, definitely also, I'm also here for some questions if somebody would have regarding this this presentation.
First, a round of applause. What a great presentation. I think you just filled in a lot of the use case and technical gaps that some of the audience was seeking. So, Doctor, thank you very much. We had a couple of questions on the Mentimeter that I want to raise. One of the questions that came through, for some reason they're not up there, was how do you get your stakeholders to trust AI answers?
So our stakeholders are very similarly to the service field engineers, to be honest. We are part of our implementation journey. And when it's coming to a new feature, sometimes we were the one who were pushing, well, I would like, this is what I like, this is super, this definitely would work, it simplifies everything, and then showing them, yes, but this is the limitation, and this is eventually the value which is bringing to you. And then coming with the recommendation, so let's do it like that, so that eventually we can plan some of the things to introduce as a feature, but this feature to be controlled and to be integrable with what we had already. And that is still a work to do because, of course, disruptions always happen. I think our side of business is very AI-driven. I think that sometimes I would assume even too much AI-driven. So this is not a big topic for us. I think it's more important to be this kind of measures to be controlled and, as I mentioned to you, to be part of a stack, not to be something which is parallel or completely unuseful. Yeah.
You also mentioned the errors, that there are presently errors and that you intend to work to eliminate those. Could you maybe speak for a minute or two on what your plan is, what your approach to cutting down on the hallucinations will be?
So one of the solutions I think I already mentioned there, so we would like as much as possible to have a tighter integration between the knowledge graph and the conversational AI methods. There are different kind of solutions. One of them is produced by Jan, I think. but definitely we would like to standardize the way the data is flowing into the knowledge graph and outside the knowledge graph. Yes, it can be augmented, and we would like to augment it through LLMs, but as much as possible to have a control point so that we know exactly that this LLM method is tested and didn't produce any kind of hallucinations. And that's very, very important.
Questions for Dr. Gergely? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So your company is even older than the automotive industry where I come from. And I have not a technical question, but a more political one. So if you want to establish, how did you establish this semantic layer? How did you make all the departments, all the interest groups, all the realms working together in such old company as yours?
Well, the company is old, the mentality is, I think, still, as I mentioned, too innovative. Politically, to be honest, we have a platform for that inside Zeiss. So there is a program which eventually allows us to pitch such a different kind of directions. But very important, this pitching area needs to be supported by one or at the best two segments. And we are going there and saying it's like, well, you have your standard stack, and this is something that definitely needs to be kind of operated. Let's go. I would like to create something on top of it. So the solution is yes. Well, through this program, you are eventually somehow financed to do this, but it is kind of observed. And you always need to say in which moment, how far did you get, and what are eventually the results of this. And in the end, you would say, well, we have one or two productive applications. On top of it, we are already happy, and this is the feedbacks coming from our customers. So the circle just got bigger. So this is what I always say, let the possibility from the perspective of the company to have this kind of small iterations and very important to have a certain platform, a certain stage for that so that people can see it, can grasp it. And there, of course, we have digital transformation officers from this segment. We have heads of other data analytics teams. So we have a kind of professionals who have an opinion about these solutions. Right? I hope this answers this question.
Maybe one more question. I've got one more. You mentioned, and it's still up on the slide, start cheap and then go big for the enterprise. Without putting you on the spot, I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you evaluated any of these guys, and have you a sense of when you're going to build your set?
There is some of the companies we kind of have an early discussions, but what to use anything in the productions, no. So everything which is nowadays part of our stack is probably not there. I don't know, Microsoft possibly. So the data products, for example, we have an Azure platform. This is not a big surprise, and there definitely, I think that Alexei knows that is part of our journey. But this is not the semantic area, which eventually nowadays is still Microsoft independent.
Very good. Another round of applause for Dr. Norbert Gergely, please.